Hi, I am Bogdan Butkevych, Ukrainian journalist, author and vlogger of two famous Ukrainian YouTube channels, Censor.net and Show Bisiki.
And I'm Olena Vostrova, Ukrainian political psychologist, media manager, author and presenter of TV and radio programs.
And I have my YouTube channel too.
So we decided to join our efforts and create one more YouTube channel in English for the people all over the world. And we named it BBUA, which means BB Ukrainian Analytics.
And BB means Bogdan Butkevych, because it was actually Bogdan's idea to create this channel and launch it.
But you know, I think that in our case, BB also means a BB gun. I think Americans will understand us. Or, for example, BB shot, a small pellet fired from the air rifle, or BB gun that hits the target.
And you know, it's sort of a military metaphor, and it's not for nothing, because we live in Ukraine, and there is a war in Ukraine. And we are talking to you right from the heart of our country, from our capital, Kyiv, which suffers these days from Russian rockets attacks almost every day. And though we do not speak perfect English,
I don't speak perfect English, really.
We perfectly know what's going on here, and we sincerely want to be heard all over the world.
And we would like to let you know what's going on here in Ukraine, like from the inside. So we are going to be your Ukrainian insiders, and we are going to show you the Ukraine from the Ukrainian perspective.
So we hope you won't concentrate on our language mistakes, but I would like you to concentrate on the information that we will give you about Ukraine, and I hope that our words will reach your minds and your hearts.
So, Russian propaganda wrapped the world with its lies. It lies about itself. It's understood. It lies about Ukraine. It lies about everything in the world. It lies about the world, yes. For example, starting from MH17, you remember, yeah? And ending with the Nova Kakhovka Dam, the real catastrophe that became now in Ukraine. So, Russians turned on all their sources, activated all their resources to cheat the world for their own purposes. You know, Russian style is to produce as many lies as possible, generating multiple versions of reality and different variants of what happened. To drown, you know, the truth in lies, so nobody can find it. For many years, the world looked at Ukraine through the Russian eyes. It's a very big problem. In democratic countries, people always want to hear two voices. It's true, okay, we understand. The right, for example, voice, the left voice, okay, but not in our case. You know, it's very important to understand that in our case, in the case of Russians' unprovoked war against Ukraine, it is about putting the voice of the killer and the voice of the victim on the same level.
And it is not about justice. Russia is an aggressor, and Ukraine is a victim of its aggression. And we Ukrainians say that we are fighters. We fight for our freedom, we fight for our independence from the Russian dictatorship, and for our free will to join the democratic world with its values and its lifestyle. And we fight for this, for the values and the lifestyle of the democratic world, and we protect it from the dictatorship on the global level. That's why democratic countries stand for Ukraine, understanding that it's their war as well. And we feel that we are not alone in this fight. We fight together. We cannot allow the right of force and aggression to triumph over the human rights.
Unfortunately, the Ukrainian state, it's a very big problem, it's truth really, hasn't built the effective instrument yet to ensure that the Ukrainian voice could be heard all around the world. That's why we, independent media persons, the patriots of our country, it's also truth, we want to tell the world, to you, about the most important news about Ukraine and around Ukraine from the true point of view, from the Ukrainian point of view. In every video of our blog, you will hear about the top 3 Ukrainian events of the week with analytics and our authors' assessments and attitude.
And event number 1 of this week is, of course, Nova Kakhovka Dam. The Russian blew up not only the Kakhovka Dam, but also the international media space. They were getting ready for this information fight just like they were getting ready for the destruction of the dam. So from the first minute of the explosion, they seized the information space and spammed it with many versions of what happened. In their usual manner, they tried to drown the truth in lies, so nobody could find the truth. Former Fox News presenter Tucker Carlson published a video in which he accumulated the essence of Russia's propaganda for expert. So we decided to analyze some of these messages that demonstrate that this person does not know, it doesn't understand the nature and the mentality of the Russians.
Or maybe he lies.
Maybe. He's a Russian propagandist.
Like some American politician says, you're a liar. Yep.
Yeah, because actually from the first minute, Carlson repeats the adjective Russian many times, actually talking about the Ukrainian.
The Kakhovka Dam was effectively Russian. It was built by the Russian government. It currently sits in Russian-controlled territory. The dam's reservoir supplies water to Crimea, which has been, for the last 240 years, home of the Russian Black Sea Fleet.
It is not a Russian dam. It is Ukrainian.
Dam.
It is not Russian territory. It is Ukrainian. It is not Russian Crimea. It is Ukrainian. If Russia occupied by force what doesn't belong to it, it doesn't mean that it belongs to it. It belongs to Ukraine, according to the international law.
Blowing up the dam may be bad for Ukraine, but it hurts Russia more.
And what hurts Russia and how? All of this hurts only Ukraine.
And for precisely that reason, the Ukrainian government has considered destroying it.
And this is a false conclusion that Carlson makes on the false assumption. The rest of assumptions, messages, statements, and tautologies made by Carlson are just as false as his first assumption, are just as false as the edited video, where different phrases are cut from different sentences, people say in different moments of their conversation.
Free or die.
Free or die.
Now you are free.
Yes.
And we will be.
And the Russians are dying. It's the best money we've ever spent.
Thank you so much.
That was...
The Russians are dying. It's the best money we've ever spent, Graham says.
See, yeah, it is very easy to cut and manipulate, yep, Mr. Carlson. But what a disgusting manipulation from you.
So, if this was intentional, it was not a military tactic, it was an act of terrorism. The question is, who did it?
And that's right. It was not a military tactic. Russia does not wage war against Ukraine. Russia terrorizes our country. Russia, not Ukraine. Our people, our women and children.
Need evidences? You saw Bucha, Irpin, Borodyanka, Izum. Actually, I'm from Irpin, and I know what I'm talking about. And Carlson does not. He never saw the horror of the Russian terror in my city. He so easily humiliates Ukrainians who did.
We could see torture chambers in all towns and cities that were deoccupied by armed forces of Ukraine. The only infrastructural object that the Russians managed to build on the occupied territories, it's a torture chamber. And one more thing you should understand about the Russians. They have such a proverb, beat, kill your own people so that other peoples are afraid of you.
Proverbs usually illustrate nations' lifestyle. They are mirrors in which one can see nations' mentality. This Russian lifestyle is called oprichina. That's such archaic principle of violence when one part of population receives from the ruler the right to terrorize the other part of the population. Probably you know the fact that Putin began his political career by blowing up his own fellow citizens in Moscow.
To begin the second war in Chechnya.
Actually, yes. It is a Russian tradition to blow up to reach the goal. So to blow up the Ukrainian dam, I will repeat, Ukrainian dam, not Russian, was in the logical framework of the Russian lifestyle. To understand Russians, their intentions and actions, one should think from the paradigm of a killer. Look at the world from the terrorist perspective, and then you can build the right cause and effect relationships, make the right conclusions, calculate what happened next, and get ready for that.
Norwegian and Romanian seismologists registered an explosion on the night when the dam was destroyed. So that wasn't the nature catastrophe as Russian propaganda trying to get into your heads. No, the Ukrainian and world engineers say that such dam could be destroyed only with an explosion from the inside of the construction. Back in October 2022, the Russian officially reported that they had mined the dam and were ready to blow it up. Hey, you will be laugh, but even then they were talking about how to stop our offensive. So, and just now, when the time for the real Ukrainian counteroffensive came, they decided to implement their criminal plan. And the most important thing, Ukraine doesn't have any weapons that would allow to blow up this dam from the outside, you know. Maybe, to beat it from the outside, you need to, for example, use, I think, the nuclear bomb or something like that, tactical nuclear bomb. The dam was under full control of Russia. Only they could undermine it from the inside, you understand?
If the world does not react properly on the ecocide and genocide that Putin and Russians committed in Nova Kakhovka, Russians will accept it like a permission to continue. What's next? Chemical and nuclear threat.
Nuclear on the Zaporizhzhia nuclear station.
We
Yep.
all are aware of this threat and we are preparing for the worst. What can stop Russia? More weapons and sanctions against Russia, so we can quickly expel this terrorist from our territory before it's too late, before it causes a more serious catastrophe for the people of Ukraine and for the peoples of the world.
You know, our war is your war now, because if they will beat Ukraine, they will come for you.
The next very important theme, of course, is war in Ukraine. And while Russian propaganda spreads fakes and rumors that the Ukrainian counteroffensive has stalled and choked, we do not use the word counteroffensive or counterattack. We talk about the activation or active actions of our defensive operation, which has not actually stopped. We have not stopped liberating our territories from the Russian occupiers.
So, the Western press, I think you read it, actively began now to write about the beginning of the Ukrainian counteroffensive, as Olena said. But you know, since winter, I have been saying in all my programs that our counteroffensive or offensive will not resemble a gigantic breakthrough of, tank horde like in World War II. But, it will be similar to a tactic of 1,000 cuts, like, for example, in Japanese films about the ninja. What I'm talking about when the enemy is gradually bleeding with a bunch of small injuries and then suddenly falls to his knees from the losing his blood. And only then there will be the time to come and do away with this enemy. Or, we can compare the tactic of our Ukrainian forces with the tactic in boxing, when you constantly deliver a large number of blows from the all sides at increasing places, in which you do not invest all your strength in terms of strength, And you don't even know at what moment the enemy will miss a blow, but he will miss it. It certainly happened because, the enemy gets tired and loses concentration. But when he loses it, okay, that's when you will go forward with all your full forces and trying to hit exactly in that place where he just missed the punch.
So now we are at the stage of inflicting a lot of cuts and blows. The stupid cockers rose in impotent rage, trying to figure out where to hit with its still quite heavy fist. And we dodged the pot fist and continued to hit with a scattering of small but painful blows on all parts of the smelly body.
Thus, in the Zaporizhzhia direction, Ukrainian army carried out small tactical strikes with the capture of several important heights. But the main goal was to uncover the positions of the Russian artillery and to force the opening of plan to respond to this offensive from the Russians, which succeeded. So during the fighting, the armed forces of Ukraine destroyed several dozen of guns and rocket systems of Russians. Unfortunately, there were also losers in Ukraine, up to 20 units of armored vehicles. But now the Ukrainian command has completely opened up the defense system of the Russians in this strategic direction.
Ukrainian forces continue tactical offensive in a large number of other directions. For example, in the area of Bakhmut, where the Russians are gradually being pushed out of their positions captured during the 5 months of active offensive. So you should not have too high expectations, but understand that the Ukrainians seized the initiative and finally stopped the Russian offensive, and the enemy will certainly be defeated. And the third case, that's about Zelenskyy and Klitschko.
So today the President Zelenskyy is very popular in the Western world, in all over the world. Okay, he became such kind of a symbol of the struggle against Russian aggression. He really looks brave, speaks brilliant speeches, and reverently plays his role of the frontman of the Ukrainian resistance. Okay, he was an actor in his pre-political life. Yep. But people do not understand one very important detail. There are two variants of Zelenskyy. One is for export, external Zelenskyy. Yep.
I thank everyone who acts in support of Ukraine, in support of freedom, but the war continues.
And the other is domestic, internal Zelenskyy.
Не скажу. Дякую.
So, if we're speaking about the outside Ukraine area, Zelenskyy pretends to be the leader of the free democratic world. But inside our country, Zelenskyy and his closest assistant Yermak, who is the head of his president administration or office administration, yep. So they're trying to usurp power under the pretext of war.
Taking into consideration the state of war, martial law, in Ukraine, there is no political struggle and there is no political life. All TV channels are united in a single television marathon, which is under the strict control of the president's office. The political opposition is marginalized and does not have access to the television marathon. At the same time, the main sphere that is not subject to Zelenskyy and Yermak is local self-government, or more precisely, mayors and regional councils.
I would like to remind you that in 2020, in the last local all-Ukrainian elections, party of President Zelenskyy, which is named Servant of the People, was resoundingly defeated. No mayors were elected from Zelenskyy party in all big and all main Ukrainian cities where population is more than 1 million. In addition, this party, Servant of the People, did not receive seats in regional councils.
Moreover, after 2 big conferences devoted to the renewal of Ukraine, Western donors made it very clear. The money for the renewal will be given directly to communities, to regional councils. Therefore, uncontrolled communities, mayors and regional councils means that the president's office will not be able to manually control the process of fund allocation, and also will not be able to make this distribution by the means of political pressure or influence.
That's why, for the last few months, President Zelensky's office began to attack all uncontrolled mayors. And the main of them is, of course, Mayor of Kyiv, Vitali Klitschko. Vitali Klitschko, yep.
Right.
So, from his first days, Zelenskyy tried to remove Klitschko from the office. However, due to the Klitschko popularity among the Kyivans and his worldwide fame as a very famous boxer, Zelenskyy did not succeed in this. With the beginning of the Russian full invasion of Ukraine, this conflict subsided, for the moment.
Yeah. However, as soon as it became clear that the risk of a repeated attack on Kyiv was decreasing, Zelenskyy went against Klitschko and the Kyiv self-government in general.
I don't want to burden you with really unnecessary for you details of the state system of Ukraine, but in simple words. To take real power away from the elected mayor, the President Zelenskyy created a military administration of Kyiv, not paying attention to the fact that the Russian forces were pushed away from the Kyiv and that Kyiv was not a frontline city. Even Ukrainian Prime Minister don't match Kyiv as a frontline city. It's true. So this military administration now holds all real power in the city. First of all, is responsible for the protection of the civilians and, of course, the condition of bomb shelters and bunkers. So the Kyiv City Council allocated about $27 million for preparation of these bomb shelters in Kyiv. Moreover, the heads of all Kyiv district administration were appointed personally by President Zelenskyy without asking the legally elected mayor.
Right on Children's Day, on the 1st of June, Russia terrorists attacked Kyiv with Iskander ballistic missiles. People ran for shelters, but in the premises of the local polyclinic, the door was closed. It turned out that the guardian didn't open it. About a week earlier, Mr. Popko, the head of the Zelenskyy military administration, guaranteed the Kyivans that all shelters would be opened. All 10 ballistic missiles were shot down by the brilliant Ukrainian air defensive system, which operates on the Patriot complex, which was kindly provided by the American government. Unfortunately, the fragments of one of the rocket fell right into the front of the polyclinics, where people didn't have time to hide. 3 people died, including a teenager girl, a prospective judoka.
Instead of working on mistakes, the president's office engaged in a very petty and disgusting political struggle. Government speakers began to blame Mayor Klitschko for everything and demanded his resignation. And on the next day, the heads of the military and district administration, again and again appointed by President Zelenskyy and not elected by Kyivans, began to demand that Klitschko should resign. So, the appointed officials wanted to make the elected with people mayor leave. Pointed.
It quickly became clear that Klitschko was not responsible for this story, and Zelenskyy and his office were severely criticized. However, Zelenskyy didn't give up his intention to remove the mayor, his political opponent. He will also continue to break the remnants of political competition in the country. He will try to hold the elections as soon as possible after the end of hostilities to get power of another 5 years.
I would like the world and our Western allies to understand that you cannot put the sign of equation between Zelenskyy and Ukraine and its heroic people who are fighting for the freedom and democratic values.
We hope that this video was interesting and useful for you. If you like it, please press the like button, the bell, and subscribe to our channel.
And of course, write your comments and questions. We will appreciate any feedback from you.
We would like to give you the point of view from which you can look at Ukraine from the perspective of truth. We would like to give the Ukrainian worldview for the world.
And the most important idea. There is no free Ukraine without free Euro-Atlantic world. And there is no free Euro-Atlantic world without free Ukraine. See you again soon.
See you.